Good morning, Ben.
What's up, Jaunty? Good to see you, buddy.
You as well. What's the weather like where you are?
A little chilly, springtime in the Rockies. It's beautiful, chilly. I kind of like it when it's a slightly dreary.
Yeah,
You know what that's about,
I
man. I
don't
like
mind
it.
that either. I woke up this morning to just torrential rain and thunder crashes, and it's
Awesome.
It's
Do you know
almost
what?
summer here. It's pretty weird.
Do you know what torrential rain does, and what the dreariness? What's appealing about the dreariness from a biochemical standpoint?
I would love to, Ben. I do have a certain emotional, like a good feeling.
Yeah, everybody likes this feeling of this spring right after a springtime storm. And the same biochemical phenomena that accounts for that feeling good or that feel-good sensation after a storm is why people live by the ocean. Because
Right.
the same phenomena occurs by the ocean. It's called negative ions.
I know much more about that than I realized at the beginning of this conversation. As a surfer, we do a lot of exercise, breathing very close to the surface of the ocean.
You get the negative ions.
There's a surfer's high that's notorious.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, that's
we'll
a
get out of the
surfer's
water
high.
and we'll just stand around giggling for
Absolutely.
15 minutes.
Absolutely. And where the waves crash, you get more of those negative ions. Those negative ions are electrons.
Right.
They're little pieces of electricity. The word electron kind of freaks people out sometimes because it sounds all quantum, which it is, of course. But it's nothing more than little pieces of electricity. And the body absolutely loves these little pieces of electricity. They're the quintessential antioxidants. They quench oxidation. They make us feel really, really good. And they're present in the ocean. The ocean is a big sink of these negative ions. The beach itself, the earth spews out negative ions. You ever hear of this thing called barefooting, where you walk barefoot in the dirt or barefoot on the sand? When you walk barefoot, the earth is spewing these negative ions through its center, and you can actually get them conducted through the bottoms of your feet.
Right.
And walking on the sand by the ocean, it's even more prominent. And after a storm, there's lots of negative ions in the air. In Japan, they have this medicine or this therapy they call I forgot what it's called, but it's forest bathing in English. I forgot what it's called.
Okay, right.
And the forest also is filled with negative ions. The trees and the plants, nature generates negative ions. So there's a biochemical basis to that kind of feel-good sensation that we have after a storm, when it's kind of rainy a little bit, or by the beach, or when we walk barefoot, or when we walk in nature. And we lose that, of course. For most of us, we live by the cities. We lose a lot of the benefits of that. They have these things called negative ion generators. Have you heard of these? There's little machines that you keep they keep in hospitals sometimes. You keep them in your living room or your bedroom, and actually spew out these negative ions, which, as I say, are the quintessential antioxidants. All antioxidants like vitamin C and vitamin E and the more traditional nutritional antioxidants work via these negative ions.
You mentioned the barefoot therapy. The other thing you're doing there is you're literally grounding yourself.
You're literally grounded. That's what it means to be grounded. You're on the ground. I mean, when you think about it, we are connected to the earth, and shoes are, in a way, insulate us from a lot of that energy that's coming out from the earth. So even though we are connected to the earth and we can't get off of it, we do have a little barrier between us and the earth when we walk with shoes, the soles of our shoes.
Yeah. Well,
so that feeling that everybody loves to walk barefoot in the dirt, the cool sensation, that's real biochemistry.
That's right. My friends thought I was just being a hippie when I wanted to walk around barefoot, but
it's not like exactly.
There was some science behind it.
There's some science there. There's some science. And speaking of the beach, I wanted to talk today about sunscreens.
Right.
I don't know if you saw this article, which I have right here, from the Journal of the American Medical Association, came out last week. Found that using sunscreen the correct way, the way they tell you to use it, applying 1 ounce every 2 hours when you're in the sun, increase the amount of 4 chemical sunscreens, 4 particularly nasty chemical sunscreens, avobenzone, octocrylene, oxybenzone, and one I hadn't heard of, Ecamsul. I hadn't heard of that one. But I've been talking about the toxicity of sunscreens for a long time. You don't need to wait for the Journal of the American Medical Association to come out with a report to tell you that these things are toxic, number one, and that they penetrate through the skin into the blood, number two. All you got to do is understand a little chemistry or biochemistry, because you can see the chemical structure of these things is such that they're going to enter in through the skin. And also, the electromagnetics of a chemical sunscreen lends it to or leads a chemist to understand that you're going to have some electrical phenomena on the surface of the skin, which is never a good thing. You're going to have a chemical electrical phenomena on the surface of the skin via these drug-like compounds. In fact, they're regulated like drugs. Sunscreens are regulated like drugs. So I knew about the toxicity of sunscreens since I was had my compounding pharmacy, since I started my compounding pharmacy back in the 1990s. When I would order sunscreens from Sunscreen, I used to have to fill prescriptions with sunscreens or create products on prescription that contain sunscreens. They would always, it would have a skull and crossbones on it, just like any medicine. So I'm like, wait a minute, if this has a skull and crossbones on it, why are people rubbing this stuff on, and why are dermatologists and skincare professionals telling people to smear this stuff on their skin and on their baby skin? In fact, even dermatologists say don't put it on your infants because infants' skin tends to be thinner. And it's like, okay, so it's not good for your infants, but it's good for you.
What I find so surprising here is the sheer stupidity of this. Of course, and how is it the FDA is just getting around to this now?
It's an of course, exactly, John. It's an of course. Do you remember last year when Hawaii banned sunscreens? That they banned these pretty much the same sunscreens for use on the beach because the stuff was killing the coral.
Right.
They actually didn't ban it. The ban doesn't go into effect until 2021, but they announced that the ban will be going into effect because the corals were dying. And I talk about how you want to avoid these sunscreens. People roll their eyes at me. People get upset with me. I had a lady who was in the sunscreen business, actually. She was in the back of the room when I was doing a presentation, and I could see her cringing when I was talking about sunscreens. And sure enough, when I took questions, she ripped me in front of 600 people. How can you say this to people? How dare you tell people not to use sunscreens, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So here's the deal. You don't want to burn, all right? You don't want to burn. There's no doubt about it. Burning is not a good thing. But there's options to sunscreen. So let's talk a little bit about these options, okay? First of all, we have to make a distinction between sunblocks and sunscreens. A sunblock blocks the sun. A sunscreen screens the sun. A screen is like a filter. And in order to accomplish this filtering mechanism or phenomena, the mechanism of action of the filtering is electromagnetic. It's an electromagnetic filter. That's what these sunscreen chemicals are. The sunblocks are like paint. You paint your skin and the sun bounces off of the sunblock. These things are inert. They don't have chemical activity. And you say, oh my gosh, how am I going to know whether something's sunscreen or sunblock? What do I do? The good news is there's only two sunblocks. And these are the two chemicals you want to look for in your sun protective product. Titanium dioxide and zinc oxide. And of the two, zinc oxide is preferred, even though it's more expensive because it's a little more difficult to work with than titanium dioxide. And by the way, both titanium dioxide and zinc oxide are expensive because they're difficult to work with. So companies don't like to mess with them. Sunscreen chemicals, octyl methoxycinnamate, that's the most common one that you'll find, but other ones like oxypropylene, oxybenzone, etc. These are very cheap because they're industrial waste products. Cosmetics business loves to work with ingredients that are waste products because they get them cheaply. So in the processing of other chemicals, these sunscreen molecules are produced, and they're very inexpensive. You can add them right into your cream. They're cheap. They're easy to make, or they're easy to work with. So you see them. There's an abundance of these things. However, there's a lot of problems. First of all, there's a toxicity associated with it, but here's another problem. The sun streams its energy from 93 million miles away in various forms or frequencies. These frequencies are called UVA, UVB, and UVC. These are the three major forms of energy frequencies that the sun is streaming its energy in. It's photonic energy in it. UVA is associated with skin aging, UVB is associated with burning, and UVC is associated with cancer. We're not going to talk about UVC because that's not as significant a problem as UVA and UVB. UVA and UVB are the two bad guys. UVB protects you from the burning, UVA protects you from the aging. Well, guess what? Chemical sunscreens, for the most part, only protect you from UVB. They don't protect you from UVA. So you get protection from burning, but you don't get the protection from the photoaging. I'm generalizing here a little bit because you'll get some burning from UVA and some photoaging from UVB, but generally speaking, UVA is your aging ray, UVB is your burning ray. You protect yourself from UVB, but you're still exposed to UVA. which means the more the more you're out in the sun with your UVB screening chemical sunscreen, the more you're exposing yourself to photoaging. Now, the cosmetic companies and the sunscreen manufacturers understand this, so they'll throw in a little bit of UVA blockers. There's two in particular that block UVA. They're called benzones, oxybenzone and avobenzone. And I know these sound like all chemically and they're hard to pronounce, hard to read, but it's really important that when we rub a product on our skin, and I've been in the skin business since 1982, and I'm telling you, it's really important when you rub a product on your skin that you know what you're rubbing on. People don't read ingredient decks when they're eating food, and that's bad, but sometimes more people read ingredient decks on food than they do on skin because there's this idea that, oh, it's my skin, it doesn't really matter. Right. It's not like my skin, anything's going to get through my skin. Wrong. Things get through your skin all the time. So UVA, the two, avobenzone and oxybenzone, are particularly nasty. They're so nasty that you can only put a speck of them in your product. Your typical sunscreen chemicals in a product at like 6%, 7%, maybe 10%, a max, usually around 6 or 7%. But oxybenzone and avobenzone are so deadly that you could, when I say deadly, I mean if you ate it, you would die. Right. That's deadly I'm talking about. Yeah. They can only put them in at specks, 0.1%, 0.2%, fractions of a percent because they're so powerful. So most sunscreens aren't going to have them. But nowadays people are hip, or some people anyway, are hip to UVA, the issue of UVA and UVB. So you'll see more of these benzones in products. You got to be really, really careful. And here's another problem. The sunscreen chemicals, as if it's not bad enough, right? The sunscreen chemicals, UVA blockers and UVB blockers, increase the penetration of other chemicals. They're penetration aids. So not only do you get the penetration of the nasty chemicals, but you get the penetration of the parabens and the formaldehyde formers and the perfumes and the other toxic chemicals that may be in your skin, your sunscreen chemical, your sunscreen product. Right. So for a whole host of reasons, none of which are a surprise to anybody who understands chemistry or biochemistry or biology, you want to stay away from sunscreens unless you're stuck and you're going to burn, you don't have any other options, in which case put it on as low an SPF as possible and wash it off as soon as you don't need it. And don't, it's better to reapply than it is to use a high SPF, because a high SPF just exposes you to more chemicals. That's how these SPFs work. They're just, I forgot to turn my phone off here. Sorry about that. So anyway, so SPFs, by the way, are a measurement of how much longer you can stay out in the sun without burning. It's not a potency number. It's not a potency measurement. It's a time measurement. So an SPF of 15 means that you can stay out in the sun twice as long as an SPF of 7.5. An SPF of 30 means you can stay out in the sun twice as long as an SPF of 15. And this is important because a lot of times we're not out in the sun long enough to need an SPF of 30 or of 50 or of 100. SPF is technically the amount of time you can spend out in the sun as a multiplication factor without turning red. So that if you can stay out in the sun for 10 minutes without a sunscreen, and you wear a sunscreen of 10, SPF of 10, now you can stay out in the sun for 10 times 10 minutes. You wear an SPF of 20, you can stay out in the sun for 10 times 20 minutes. You wear an SPF of 30, you can stay out in the sun for 10 times 30, 300 minutes. You follow what I'm saying? So you take how long you would burn, and then you multiply it by your SPF, and that's how much longer you can stay out in the sun. So if you wear an SPF of 30, say, right? Say you burn in 20, I burn in maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. If I'm out in the sun, like baking, I would burn in 20 minutes. Some people burn less, some people a little more. So say you burn in 20 minutes, an average. Now you wear an SPF of 30, you can stay out in the sun for 20 times 30 minutes, 600 minutes. That's 10 hours. Who the heck is laying out in the sun for 10 hours? Yeah. So you don't need an SPF of 30. And now they have SPFs of 100 and SPFs of 80. And all that does is just exposes your skin to more chemistry, more toxic chemistry. So what's the person to do? Lots of options. Number one, zinc oxide. Well, first of all, if you have to wear sunscreen, wear it, because burning's not good. So wear it, low SPF, reapply it, and then as soon as you get out of the sun, wash it off. Remember, it's a drug. As soon as you don't need it, don't you expose yourself to it. Then, if you can, look for zinc oxide. Zinc oxide has a healing quality. Zinc oxide blocks UVA, UVB, and UVC. And you don't have to worry about toxicity with zinc oxide. Now, if you can't find zinc oxide, go with titanium dioxide, which is easier to find. Zinc oxide is a little bit harder to find, although nowadays you can find them. And then when you're using a sunblock product, look for a sunblock product that has vitamin C in it, or that has vitamin E in it, or that has other antioxidants in it that can help protect you from the sun in addition to the sun blocking effect. So you get an extra effect. Or if you're going to use a sunscreen, also look for a sunscreen that has vitamin C or vitamin E in it. Those are the two most important antioxidant vitamins for protecting your skin. Carotenes are also protective. Beta carotene, for example, everybody's heard of that, but there's also zeaxanthine and lutein, and there's a whole hundreds of different carotenes. So you can use a topical products that contain these carotenes. And then the most important and probably the best way to protect your skin from the sun is to make sure you're taking care of your nutrition. And when I say taking care of your nutrition, I'm talking about specifically antioxidants and pigments. So you want to make sure you're using vitamin C. You want to make sure you're using vitamin E. N-acetylcysteine, NAC, great anti-sun or sun protective nutrient. You can also use selenium and zinc. These are also deposited in the skin where they're sun protective. And also pigments. Make sure you're eating reds and blues and greens and all of the various colors of the rainbow that are associated with fruits and vegetables, especially the outside parts of fruits and the pigments in the vegetables. Make sure you're eating your veggies, your greens and your reds and your blues, etc. And because the pigments are fat soluble, fatty, if you have your gallbladder removed or you have an intestinal problem or you have a liver issue, for whatever reason, stomach problem, you're not making enough stomach acid, you're not absorbing your fats, and many people have fat malabsorption issues, particularly as we get older, especially women as they get older. Make sure when you're eating your veggies to get those pigments, you're braising them in a little bit of oil, like coconut oil, not vegetable oil. You want to stay away from vegetable oil. That's not good. But butter is really good. I like coconut oil. I know there's a lot of controversy around it, but I personally like coconut oil. But whatever, if you braise your vegetables in butter or some kind of lipid, you're going to release those pigments more effectively. That's going to allow these pigments to be deposited in your skin more efficiently as well. And then don't forget about vitamin D. For you guys who are terrified of the sun, UVB, the burning ray that's blocked by sunscreens, is what stimulates the vitamin D.
Yeah.
And a lot of doctors will say, don't worry about vitamin D. You can supplement with vitamin D. That's not the best way to get you vitamin D. The vitamin D that is activated, that's produced in the skin from the sun, is a more efficient vitamin D. It's a vitamin D that's transported through the bloodstream more effectively. So the vitamin D that we get from the sun is not as effective as the vitamin D you get from supplements. It's not even as effective as the vitamin D that you get from foods. If you're going to use Youngevity products, here's a little trick for you. Eye vitamins like Occutive and Vision X will protect your eyes from the sun, and they'll also protect your skin from the sun. And one of my favorite Youngevity products is, we've talked about this before, is the Fuchs Z. And the Fuchs Z contains wonderful sun protective pigments that are deposited in your skin. Carotenoids, they call them, the xanthines. They are deposited in your skin where they protect your skin from the sun. So respect your sunscreen. If you are using it, get it off when you don't need it. Use as low an SPF as you have to. Stay away from products. There's a lot of eye creams and face creams that have built-in sunscreens that every time you rub your face or moisturize your face with the product or put your under eye cream on, you're using a sunscreen. And the skin under your eyes is very thin, by the way. So so you get really good penetration there. Stay away from those kinds of products. If you're going to burn, yes, use a sunscreen. Get it off as soon as possible. But a much better bet is look for zinc oxide. Look for zinc oxide with other antioxidants in it, like vitamin C and vitamin E. And then use internal nutrition, antioxidants, pigments, and eye vitamins. Or if you don't want to do the eye vitamins, get the nutrients that are in eye vitamins: selenium, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin E, and acetylcysteine. These are all protective for the eyes, and they're also protective for the skin.
Well, one of the things I found interesting here, just reviewing one of the related articles, is that they're talking about how we went from occasionally applying some sunscreen on a vacation once a year or something like that, to putting it on every single day.
Exactly.
But I'm also kind of like, what have people gone completely nuts? And yes, I guess we have. You know, if you've got a
we don't acknowledge it's a medicine. We don't acknowledge it's a drug, and we don't acknowledge the skin as a route of administration for things through into the bloodstream. I mean, this is what pharmacy. A large part of my pharmacy education was focused on what's called pharma. What the heck did they call it? I forgot what they called it, but it was the study of the skin, of using the skin as a route of administration.
Oh, huh.
Yeah. You know, I actually forgot the fancy term for it, but it's a study. It's the study of delivering nutrients through the skin into the blood. And this is where I learned to be in the skincare business. I was like, well, maybe we can leverage these ideas to get stuff into the not into the bloodstream, but into the lower levels of the skin to fight wrinkles and to improve the condition of the skin.
Neat. You know, I had a laugh at this. There's some guy that they're quoting in this article, and he says. The sun is the real enemy here. I mean, I'm like, the sun has been taking care of us. The sun is the most magical thing in our immediate part of the
There's no life.
The universe.
The sun is the source of life.
Yeah.
The sun is the source of life. The sun is the father.
Right. I mean, what a terrible thing to say. The sun is definitely not the enemy.
It's definitely not the enemy.
And you know what you can do that works fantastically well is you can wear a hat. You can put on a hat. On a day-to-day basis.
You can wear a hat. Yeah, you can wear a hat and you can cover up. But I prefer people. Yeah, if you know what, it's true. You got to respect the sun because it's powerful energy. Nonetheless, that doesn't mean it can't be leveraged, and that doesn't mean that it has to be avoided or vilified or demonized.
Yeah.
And yes, you're right. You can cover up if worse comes to worse. But I don't like the idea of making the sun into the bad guy.
Right, exactly.
We grew up in the sun. Human beings grew up in the sun, and we have melanin that's designed to protect us from the sun. That's what a tan is. That's what the darkening is. Some people have said a tan is damaged skin. Have you heard this?
No, I've never heard that. Huh?
This is a kind of a meme, a belief that's out there among the uninitiated who don't really understand chemistry. A tan is a protective response. It's not a damaged skin, although sometimes people, when they have damaged the skin, they haven't taken care of themselves. Smoking is one of the worst things you can do. In fact, if smoking in the sun, now that's a big problem. The smoking in general is a big problem. People will have photo damage from not taking care of themselves, and that photo damage can be associated with darkening, and so people will assume that there's a relationship between the darkening and the photo damage. It's not true. The darkening effect, the melanin, the oxidation of melanin is like your skin pulling the shades down. And by the way, the more melanin you have, the more likely you are going to be to have a vitamin D deficiency. And it turns out that African Americans, people who have black skin, are more prone towards vitamin D deficiency diseases like prostate cancer, for example, which is associated with vitamin D deficiency. Diabetes is associated with vitamin D deficiency. Weight problems are associated with vitamin D deficiency. I mean, there's pretty much almost every health challenge you can name can be associated with a vitamin D deficiency because vitamin D is like a panacea. It's like a all-around wellness nutrient. I hesitate to call it a vitamin, even though we refer to it as a vitamin, because in reality it's a hormone. So you're actually regulating a wellness, all-around panacea health delivery hormone by getting yourself out in the sun. And if you're darker, you have, like me, or you're African-American, you're really dark, it becomes extremely important that you make sure that you're getting enough sunshine and make sure that you're getting enough vitamin D.
Well, we're heading into the summer months. When I was a kid, I would go out and get a tan. I might get a burn early in the summer, and then I would get a tan, and I'd have some resistance. And if the sun was feeling a little hot on my face, I'd wear a hat. And somehow we survived. But it seems, I constantly see this having young kids. The kids are going out into the yard to play. And every kid has to be absolutely plastered, every inch of skin with some kind of, as you say, it's a medical treatment of a toxic chemical. So,
burning is not, you got to be careful with the burning. You don't want to burn. That's very important that we say that because people, immediately think of if they're not wearing sun protection that they're going to burn. Burning's not a good thing. And skin cancer, by the way, is cancer. The fact that it's on the skin is not as important as the fact that it's cancer. Cancer is a sign of duress. That's how we got to look at cancer. In fact, we should probably do a video on cancer here in the near future. Cancer is a sign of cellular duress. So while the sun or any stimulus can activate duress, or the duress response, I should say. Making the skin strong can help protect the skin from the duress response, or from the duress. That's where the antioxidants come in. That's where the pigments come in. That's where overall nutrition comes in. Keeping your sugar down, you're stabilizing your blood sugar, making sure you're staying away from processed foods, certainly not smoking, exercising, all the basic things. We don't want to just blame the sun for the skin cancer, or you don't want to blame anything for cancer. We want to blame the weakness of our body in combination with the abuse and the duress that's the end result of the abuse that most of us, or many of us at least, are subjecting our bodies to.
Well said, Ben. I appreciate your time very much. I don't know anybody else, and I probably never will, who knows quite as much about skin as you do. And it's fascinating to get all of your insight into something which if it's being recommended to put on daily, then folks need to educate themselves a little bit about it.
Yes, it's respect the chemicals, respect the sunscreen. You're not, and really all skincare products, respect all skincare products. This is not, the skin is part of the body. It's not divorced from the body. This is the body's largest organ.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us to get our minds around it because it sure doesn't look like an organ, but we really want to, via our imagination and our understanding of how our bodies are put together, we want to respect the skin as a fully fledged organ, every bit as organ-like as your heart or your lungs or your spleen. And that means you respect what you put on the skin. Read your ingredient deck and be a savvy consumer.